Welcome to Summarized Teachings, the podcast way. Today we're embarking on a deep dive into the really profound teachings of Steve Jobs, an incredibly influential figure. We've got a whole stack of his words here, excerpts from speeches, interviews, and our mission really is to pull out the core insights he shared about life, about work, leadership.
Indeed. And it's not just about the gadgets, is it? It's about the philosophy behind them. We're digging into the universal wisdom here, focusing on his personal stories, his observations, trying to get at not just what he did, but why it matters for all of us. Expect some maybe surprising facts and definitely some aha moments along the way.
Okay, so where do we start to really get a handle on his thinking? Maybe with his take on marketing. He said it's a very complicated world. It's a very noisy world. How did he sort of flip the script on what marketing is, moving beyond, the speeds and feeds?
Well, yeah, that's fascinating. He basically redefined it. He argued the world's just too noisy. A company can't get people to remember like a long list of things about them. So the key thing becomes be really clear on what we want them to know about us. He was explicit that success isn't about product specs or features or even just beating the competition directly. It's about what you stand for, your core belief.
Yeah.
That's what sticks.
Right. And he used some interesting examples from outside tech, didn't he? Tell us about Got Milk and Nike. How do they show this focus on values?
Absolutely. He loved the Got Milk campaign. The dairy industry had pushed nutrition for years, right? Sales were flat. Then Got Milk focused on the absence of milk, that feeling when you don't have it, and sales jumped.
Ah, okay. Focusing on the feeling, the need.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
his best example of all, he said, was Nike. I mean, Nike sells shoes. It's a commodity, really.
Okay.
But when you think Nike,
Do you feel something else entirely?
precisely, you feel something different than a shoe company. Their ads, they almost never talk about the shoes themselves.
Yeah.
No air soles, no comparisons. Instead, they honor great athletes and they honor great athletics. That's who they are. That's what they're about. It's about aspiration, achievement.
So bringing that back to Apple, when he returned after being away, how did that idea shape the strategy? What was the core value he wanted to communicate?
Well, he was very clear. Apple's core value, he said, is the belief that people with passion can change the world for the better. And that wasn't just, slick marketing talk. It was a deep conviction. The Think Different campaign, their first big brand campaign in ages, was all about communicating that. It honored the people who think different and who move this world forward. Apple stood with them. He even shared those famous words. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels.
The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the big takeaway here feels like values define who you are, not just your products. And that applies to us as individuals too, right?
Absolutely. It really pushes you to think about your own core values, what truly drives you. And then how do you live that? How do you communicate that clearly in, this noisy world? It's about authenticity, purpose, much deeper than just listing skills.
Okay, so that foundation of values connects really well to his more personal life lessons. He shared 3 stories in that famous speech, called them No Big Deal, just 3 stories. But they're packed with insight. Let's unpack the first one, connecting the dots.
Right. This one starts with him dropping out of Reed College. After just 6 months, it was expensive, and he felt, lost, didn't see the point.
So he dropped out, but then he dropped in.
Exactly. He started dropping in on classes that just looked interesting, like calligraphy. He learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, what makes typography beautiful. He said he found it fascinating, but admitted it had even a hope of any practical application at the time. He was sleeping on floors or turning Coke bottles for food money. It wasn't about career planning.
Just pure curiosity. But then, 10 years later, that calligraphy class suddenly mattered. How did it connect to the Mac?
Yeah, massively. He said when they were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me and we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography.
Yeah.
He pointed out if he hadn't dropped in on that one class, the Mac wouldn't have had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts.
Wow.
And here's the kicker. Since Windows copied the Mac, he said, it's likely that no personal computer would have them.
That's incredible. So the teaching is,
You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it looking back. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. Trust your gut, your intuition, your curiosity, even when you can't see the immediate payoff.
okay, powerful lesson. His second story was about love and loss. Started Apple at 20, huge success, then fired at 30 from his own company. That must have been just crushing.
Oh, absolutely devastating. He called it a very public failure. felt he'd let people down. But then, slowly, he started to see it differently. He realized getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
How could that be the best thing?
Because the heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. Less certain about everything. And that freedom, he said, allowed him to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. In the next 5 years, he started NXT and Pixar. Pixar, think Toy Story.
Right.
And, in a strange twist, NXT eventually led him back to Apple when they bought the company.
So for us, facing our own setbacks or career challenges, what's the lesson there?
It really comes down to resilience and passion. He was convinced the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. His advice was profound. You've got to find what you love. The only way to do great work is to love what you do.
And if you haven't found it,
keep looking, he said. Don't settle. He even compared it to finding a great relationship. You'll know when you find it, and it just gets better and better.
Don't settle. Keep looking. Okay. The final story is about death. Sounds heavy, but it led to a really practical daily practice for him.
Yeah, it does sound dramatic, but the insight is powerful. At 17, he read a quote, something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last someday, you'll most certainly be right." And it stuck with him. For 33 years, he said, he looked in the mirror each morning and asked himself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today?
And if the answer was no too many days in a row?
He knew he needed to change something. That practice, remembering that I'll be dead soon, was his tool for making the big choices.
How does facing mortality do that? How does it cut through the noise?
Well, he explained that almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. He called death life's single best invention.
Wow.
Yeah. Life's change agent,
Yeah.
clearing out the old for the new. So the ultimate teaching, the one he closed with, is just so direct. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life.
Don't get trapped by dogma.
Right. Don't be trapped by dogma, which he defined as living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition.
And then that famous sign-off.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. A call to keep learning, keep pushing boundaries. Don't become complacent.
Amazing. Okay, so beyond those big life stories, he also gives some very direct advice on, just doing things.
Oh.
Influencing the world. Let's start with simply asking.
Yeah, this is a great one. He said, quite simply, I've never found anybody that didn't want to help me if I asked them for help. And he told that story about being 12 years old.
The Bill Hewlett story.
That's the one. He needed parts for a frequency counter he was building. He looked up Bill Hewlett in the Palo Alto phone book.
Just called him up at 12.
Yep. And Hewlett answered. He chatted with him, gave him the parts, and offered him a summer job at HP.
That's incredible.
And Jobs' point was, most people never pick up the phone and call. Most people never ask. And that's what separates sometimes the people that do things from the people that just dream about them. Just ask.
That ties right into his point about being willing to fail, doesn't it? Asking involves risk.
Exactly. You have to be willing to risk rejection, risk looking silly. He said flat out, you've got to be willing to crash and burn. Whether it's making that call, starting a business, whatever. If you're afraid of failing, you won't get very far. Action requires embracing that risk.
And then there's that phrase, poke life. What on earth did he mean by poke life?
Oh, this is fundamental. It's the idea that everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you.
Okay.
And the implication is huge. You can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use. The moment you realize that if you poke life, something will pop out the other side, that you can actually have an effect. You understand you can change it, you can mold it. He said, once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. It's about realizing your own power, your own agency. Don't just accept the world as it is.
Wow. That's incredibly empowering. So how did these ideas about values, passion, asking, poking life show up in how he led people at Apple? Was it a typical corporate structure?
Not really, no. He
Wow.
described Apple as incredibly collaborative and, maybe surprisingly, having no committees.
Yeah.
We are organized like a startup, he said.
Even as a huge company.
Yeah. Individual leaders responsible for big areas, iPhone software, Mac hardware, marketing, etc. They had weekly 3-hour meetings covering the whole business. That, he felt, fostered tremendous teamwork that spread through the company. And it all relied on, crucially, trusting the other folks to come through with their part without watching them all the time. Trust, not micromanagement.
That sounds great, but was he really open to being told he was wrong? Could people challenge him?
He insisted they could, and did. He said they had wonderful arguments at Apple. His philosophy was simple. The best ideas have to win. Why? Because otherwise, good people don't stay. Talented people want to be where their ideas matter.
Makes sense.
And he also talked about taking a longer-term view on people. If someone was screwing up, the goal wasn't just to fix the immediate problem. It was about helping that person learn and grow rather than just stepping in. Developing people was key.
Okay, so collaboration, trust, best ideas win. What about making those really big, tough decisions? How do they get everyone aligned?
Well, he didn't believe in forcing people to buy into a decision they thought was wrong. He felt that was pointless. Why pay someone to do something they disagree with?
So what did they do?
For the really important decisions, his method was get everybody in a room and talk it through until you agree. He mentioned at NXT, his policy team would work on critical issues till we all agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as he put it, we pay people to tell us what to do, not just follow orders.
So intense debate until consensus.
For the big stuff, yes. The key was to limit how many decisions were treated that way. Focus the energy on the few truly vital ones to get that genuine agreement.
So if you're trying to lead or collaborate, regardless of your role, what's the core lesson here?
I think it's that real teamwork thrives on trust, on open debate where the best idea wins, not just the boss's idea. It's about empowering people to challenge, learn from failures, and really own the crucial decisions together. That builds commitment.
What a deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from values being your identity, not just features.
Connecting those seemingly random dots looking backward.
Finding what you love and letting that guide you through anything.
Yeah, and using the thought of mortality to focus on what's truly important.
Plus the courage to just ask, to risk failure, and that amazing idea that you can actually poke life.
And finally, building collaboration on trust and ensuring the best ideas rise to the top.
It's clear these aren't just business tips, are they? They feel like timeless principles for, well, for living a meaningful life.
Exactly. They push us to look inward. What are my values? What's my passion? And then look outward. How can I challenge things? How can I make an impact?
So as you listening, think about all this. Maybe consider which of these teachings really hit home for you right now. And perhaps what's one small way you could, poke life or follow your intuition this week. Keep asking those questions. Keep exploring.